But I was going to do a little overview. Thought I could use a little yardstick. I forgot to get one. Cool. Okay, so a little bit of an overview of the book of Revelation. Let me fast forward here to Clarence Larkins has this chart. Man, that's way down. Maybe I made a mistake here. Okay. So I don't know if you can see these. Can you read that? Not really. That's too bad. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Anyhow, first part of the book of Revelation, John had a vision, and Jesus told him to write the vision, write the things which thou hast seen. That's Christ among the seven candlesticks. Can you see the candlesticks there? That's where we're at now, the church age. 7 churches, the vision. Chapter 1, 180 had the salutation. 119 to 20 is the church, the vision of Christ. The 7 church that's where the things which are. So the vision actually was Christ among the candlesticks. Then the things which are, the church age. Sorry, first statement was wrong. And then the things which shall be hereafter goes all the way from chapter 4 to the end of the book of Revelation. And that's the great tribulation. So the most of the book of Revelation is future. I know there are people who believe it's in the past. Preterism. That it happened when Jerusalem was taken, was ransacked in 70 AD. But I believe that the most of Revelation is in the future. So chapter 6, you got the white horse, the red horse, all those 4 horses, black, green, pale, called pale horse, which is a green horse. And then, let's see. So you got the 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 figures, I call them. He calls them 7 in chapter 12, 13. An interval, the 7 vials is the last part of the book of Revelation. All right. Let me go back to my kind of the way I put it, as far as the three periods in the Great Tribulation. There's the seal period, there's the trumpet period, and then there's the vial period, the bowls of wrath, the vials of wrath. And some of them overlap, or all of them overlap to some degree. So the first seal, Revelation 6, the white horse. Second seal, the red horse. Peace takes earth. They can kill one another. Third seal is the black horse, which is famine, which usually happens after stuff like that. And then the pale horse is death, power to kill 4th part of the earth. So, and then the 5th seal is souls under the altar crying for vengeance up in heaven. These are souls, these are tribulation saints that got killed during the tribulation. They're crying for vengeance. And then in the 6th seal is the second coming. They see Christ on the throne, and they're crying for the rocks to fall on them and cover them, for the day of his wrath is come. And then the 7th seal is in Revelation 8:1. And it doesn't say what happens as far as calamities or wrath. It just says 7 angels were given 7 trumpets and prepared to. So the way I see it then is the 7th seal overlaps with the 5th and 6th seal, apparently because of the events that take place. You have the trumpets. The trumpets are in the same time period as the 5th, 6th seal, which is an overlap of the 7 seals, the best way I can figure it out. So you got the sixth seal all the way over to the right, which is the second coming. The seventh trumpet is the second coming. It overlaps. Can't have two comings, right? Kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of Christ. All right, so we could go through all the things that will happen in the trumpet period, but let me skip forward here. So the vial period is in that small last part of the tribulation. Some people think it's like 30 days. It's like the concentrated wrath of God being poured on the earth. So, by the way, just to give you a little overview, I mean, why doesn't God just all of a sudden show up and says, you go to hell and you go to heaven? He draws it out, pours out some wrath and some judgment, and then warns people. And then, well, if you read the book of Revelation, you find out they don't repent, but he still gives some time. Then he pours some more out and draws it out. Gives people ample warning because he's about to wrap up this world. And it's going to be a cutoff line where people go to hell or go to heaven, so he's giving them lots of time and lots of calamities and hard times to give people all the time and all the motivation to come to Christ and be saved. It looks harsh, but really, to consider the overview of why he's doing it, it's the best scenario to get people to repent, because people don't respond to love only. They respond to fear. So God will use that. If that's the last resort he's got, he'll use it. Here's another chart. I've showed this before, like the overlap. You've got book of Revelation here. 7 seals go all the way, well, it's actually 6 seals, go all the way to the end. And the 7th seal's got the trumpets, which overlap the last part of the seal period. And then the bowls, or the vials, overlaps this last part. Same time period as the 6th seal, and the 7th trumpet is the seven bowls. In the Old Testament, you have an overview, just like you have in Revelation. You got 70th week of Daniel, all the way through to 7-year tribulation. 9 times and half a time, plus the 30 days, according to this guy who put this together. 3.5 years plus the 30 days. And that overlaps just like down here. All right. Okay. So all 3 periods have an introduction. The introduction to the seal period, which was chapter 6. The introduction to chapter 4 and 5. Remember what happened chapter 4 and 5? It's Christ on the throne, or actually it's God on the throne, and they all are looking for somebody who is worthy to open the book that is in the right hand on the throne, and then they found Christ. He was worthy to open the book and break those seals in chapter 6. But 4 and 5 is the introduction to that. Okay, and then you have the introduction to the trumpet period in chapter 8, and it talks about the prayers of the saints rising up before God. And then the trumpet period goes, and then introduction to the vial period, chapter 12 through 15, and we're in chapter 14 this morning. So he kind of like pauses his narrative on each of these periods and from an overview, from a perspective of different major figures in the book of Revelation. So in chapter 12, the major figures in chapter 12 was the sun-clothed woman, which is the nation of Israel. We saw the great red dragon, that's the devil. And he was ready to devour the man-child, which was Christ. As soon as he was born, he was going to devour that baby. And, he got caught up to heaven. He went to heaven. After he died and rose again, he went to heaven. And then Michael fights the dragon, another great figure in the book of Revelation in this section. So you got the woman, the dragon, the Christ, the man-child, and Michael, the archangel, fighting the dragon who was thrown out of heaven. And he persecutes the woman, Israel, and then he persecutes the remnant of her seed, the Jewish people. Then in chapter 13, we had the beast rise up out of the sea, which is the fourth beast of Daniel, chapter 7. Composite beast of leopard, bear, and lion. Lion is the Babylonian Empire back in, I don't remember what year it was. Way back in Daniel's day, Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. He was the lion, the head of gold. Then the next empire that followed the Babylonian Empire was the Medo-Persian Empire, the bear, represented by the bear, King Cyrus, I think was it Darius. Then the leopard empire, Alexander the Great, came after that. There's a map of the empire of Alexander the Great. You know where the nation of Israel is now? Israel is this little spot right there. So all of this Iran, Iraq, Tajikistan up here, and all the way over here to Greece, the Asia Minor, Turkey. Okay, there's some modern, similar map. Egypt, just above Jordan. This is Alexander the Great's kingdom, empire. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Greece, Turkey, Syria. In 7 years, or was it less than 7 years? Something like that, he had all that conquered. So leopard is a good representation with 4 wings. He's very fast. Picture up there. Greek Empire. That was chapter 13 where we read about the 4 beasts. Alexander the Great's empire is another map. Okay. So John saw a 4th beast rise up out of the sea. Well, he just saw a beast, and he had characteristics of all the 3 former beasts. All right, the 4th beast of Daniel, composite beast of leopard, bear, and lion. And the main characteristic that John saw of this beast is that it had a mouth that spoke blasphemy, could boast great things. And he overcame the saints, the tribulation saints, the Jews. He overcame them. And then the other great figure in the book of Revelation, this section anyway, is the beast that comes out of the earth, which is the false prophet. So you've got the Antichrist, the man of sin, the son of perdition, and you've got the false prophet. So you've got, and of course you've got the, let's see, what is the anti-spirit? Like there's a fake representation of God, the Son, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There's this Trinity in the satanic Trinity. There's the devil's son. Oh, the dragon is the Father. The dragon and the Antichrist and the false prophet is the satanic Trinity. He deceives the whole world by the miracles. That's the false prophet. The lamb, was it a lamb with 2 horns and spake like a dragon? That's the false prophet. Okay, so chapter 14, let's just quick overview of chapter 14. 144,000 Jewish virgins on Mount Sinai with the Lamb. Angel preaching the everlasting gospel. 2nd angel announces judgment of Babylon. 3rd angel warns of the judgment for taking the mark of the beast. And then Son of Man, sitting on a cloud, reaps the earth with a sickle, and an angel casts the vine of the earth in the winepress. All right, so here's the text. Revelation 14, verse 1. I don't know if you got the overview. We are just before the vials period now. This is still like the last, this chapter gives the last warning to the pouring out of God's wrath. But before that warning comes, later in this chapter, we see saints in heaven. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion. And 44,000 having the Father's name written in their foreheads. Now, there are all kinds of opinions about who the 144,000 are. Some people think it's figurative, like that article you sent me. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, they think it's some special group of people. And I don't remember. I think the Mormons might have some belief like that. And nobody knows exactly, is the number fulfilled already, but it's saints that are allowed to go to heaven and the rest have to stay on earth. That's the Jehovah's Witness, which I call them the non-Jehovah's Witnesses. But these 144,000, they're very clearly spelled out who they are in the Bible. But let's look at Mount Zion first, where the Lamb was seen standing. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion. We know who the Lamb is, right? That's very obvious. That's Jesus Christ. He's called the Lamb because he was slain, shed his blood to redeem us all. And now he's standing there as the Lamb, figuratively speaking. I doubt you would see him looking like a lamb, but perhaps he could take the shape of a lamb just for a while and then change back to the shape of a human. I wouldn't be surprised at all, just like he could probably change into a lion or an eagle. But here he's depicted as a lamb standing there on Mount Zion. So a specific location in heaven. But Hebrews 12:22 says, "But you are coming to Mount Zion and unto the city of the living God." So there's a mountain in heaven, and the heavenly Jerusalem is on that mountain. So it's an elevated location in heaven. But apparently there's also a mountain or an elevated position where there's not a mansion sitting there or a city sitting there, because here is a lamb with 44,000 people standing on top of this mountain. Some other references about Mount Zion. I think it's the same mount, even though it's spelled a little different. Zion instead of Sion. Beautiful for situation of the whole earth. Now this is the earthly Mount Zion. Is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. So Mount Zion is associated or is parallel or is the city of the great king. In other words, the city is there in Mount Zion. Psalm 74:2, "Remember thy congregation," which there's a group of people, "which thou hast purchased of old," redeemed, "the rod of thine inheritance, which thou hast redeemed, this Mount Zion, wherein thou hast dwelt." God dwells there in Mount Zion. Psalm 132:13, "For the Lord hath chosen Zion," the earthly Zion. So there's like a parallel of heaven and earth, heaven, Zion, and earth. Chosen Zion, he hath desired it for his habitation, his dwelling place. He loves that location over there in Israel. That's a very special location. No wonder the devil hates that place. You know, you wonder, why does he want that little sliver of land when the Arabs have way more land than that? But they want that one little sliver. The only way I can explain that, there's a spiritual motivation going on behind the scenes. But John says that he looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion. That's the heavenly Mount Zion. And with him, 144,000 who were sealed with what did he say? Sealed with his Father's name written on their foreheads. Well, it doesn't say sealed here, but we know that's what it is because of Revelation chapter 7. Back a few chapters before this, chapter 7, there were told to not blow on the earth, to hold back the wind, hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the, which is kind of a rescue. Why, like, how would that fit for us, the church, right now, today? Don't hurt don't persecution, or don't bring calamity, bring hard times, till we have sealed. This is obviously a unique time that is still in the future. Till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. The fact that he goes through then after this, if you keep reading in your Bible, each tribe, 12,000 of each tribe, I think you have to jump through a lot of hoops and do a lot of allegorizing to not apply that just normally, naturally, the way. I believe there will be 12,000 of each tribe of the nation of Israel that will be sealed, and those 144,000 are a unique group of virgins, male virgins, that will have a specific calling during the Great Tribulation. And if you read Revelation 7, you see a great crowd of people up in heaven after they were sealed, indicating they're converts. They have a huge amount of people who get saved or respond to the gospel. Whatever, I guess you could say the gospel. I think it's going to be a little bit different in tribulation. But anyhow, having his Father's name, that is the seal, having his Father's name written in their forehead. Jesus has a Father, that's God the Father. His Father's name will be the seal on their foreheads, and it protects them until the latter part of the tribulation, and then they die and go to heaven. And here they are. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. So it's the voice of heaven, the voice of many waters. We saw that earlier part of the book of Revelation. And as the voice of a great thunder, it's quite a harmonizing going on here. And the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders. I guess that's their audience. It's the throne, the four beasts, and the elders, the 24 elders. So they're singing this new song before Christ, before God. I guess it's before God, because Christ is standing among them. And the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. Can you see the uniqueness of this group of people? They alone could learn that song. It was specific to them, not to anybody else. No other man, indicating there are other men, other saints in heaven. And they sung a new song. Here's another reference. 3 times in the book of Revelation you see people singing in heaven, just 3 times. There are other worship services in heaven, but only 3 times do we read. Now, of course, when we get to heaven, there will be specific moments when we'll all gather together and worship God, have a praise service. And it'll be more than 3 times. It'll be over and over. But it's not like all the time. It's obvious that it only happens at specific moments, like we do once a week. We come together and we worship God, and then we go out and do other things. Well, in heaven, you'll be doing a lot of other things. But then you'll have a day, hey, we're going to have a great worship service. Let's come and worship God. Well, here you have a very unique group of people. No doubt there will be different groups of people say, we want to express from our perspective, maybe like a specific group of people want to come together and worship God. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's not just the 144,000 that have a special group of people. The other groups say, we want to represent a certain group of people and worship God in a unique way. Show a facet of the grace of God that other groups might not. And then, of course, everybody joins together, comes together and worships God. So there's different worship services that I believe will take place in heaven. Here we see, I think it's the 24 elders singing here. They sung a new song saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people, nation. That's just the 24 elders and maybe the beast, because that's all that's mentioned there in chapter 5. But here's the 3rd time that you see tribulation saints singing. And I believe these are the converts of the 144,000. And I saw as it were a sea of glass. So you have this portable platform that's just smooth like a sea of glass, mingled with fire. There's just a holy fire in this platform. Look, it's like transparent. You can just see fire going on down in the transparent stone. Looks like a sea of glass, and like marble, but it's more clear than marble. It's transparent and translucent. So I believe it's portable and probably can change size for special occasions. Like this. And them that had, so he saw a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast. You see that? The victory over the beast. And over his image and over his mark. So it's the tribulation saints. And over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. So that was the third mention of saints singing. Here's the second, again, Revelation 14. So they sing this new song that nobody else could learn. All right, so then verse 4 says, These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins, plural, virgins, plural. The church is called virgin, singular. So this can't be the church. These are Jewish male virgins. It says they are not defiled with women. So these are not women. I take it literal. You can, I don't know, if you want to take it, apply it to the church or to somebody else, well, go ahead, but I think you're wrong. I mean, you're violating just the text, I think. These are they which were not defiled with women. Now, of course, we can take some lessons from that. These guys did not look at pornography. They did not defile themselves with the crown sin, the main sin during the tribulation, which is fornication, sexual sins, which is already ramping up to tremendous heights even now. And so it'll be even worse then. And perhaps it could include idolatry, which is spiritual fornication. But I believe this is literal staying pure from women. Not defiled with women, for they are virgins, not to say that marriage defiles you, but these guys chose not even to get married. They're like the Apostle Paul. Unhindered, just go out and preach, not worry about family. Totally give themselves over to God. There's a very special group of people that God will call out and protect during the tribulation. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. So they're very dedicated to Jesus Christ. These were redeemed from among men. I have not found that phrase used to anybody else. Are we redeemed from among men? Well, we are redeemed, but this is a special group of people who have a specific calling and are redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile. That's the other description of this group of people, these men. No guile in their mouth, for they are without fault before the throne of God. Isn't that interesting? Didn't James say if you want to bridle your whole body, or you don't want to, can't remember exactly how he says it, he says bridle your mouth. So your mouth is your main rudder of your life. And if you can control your mouth, you can control your life. They are without fault before God. So here are the characteristics, or all the aspects of the 144,000. They're of the tribes of Israel. They're sealed on their foreheads with his Father's name, Christ's Father's name. They're sealed before the earth and the seas and the trees will be hurt. Called the servants of our God. They sing before the throne, the beasts and the elders. No man could learn it but them, indicating there are other believers there. It says no man could learn it but them. So, anyway, some people think that if you take that literal, then that's saying only 144,000 go to heaven, and no women can go to heaven. Well, I'm taking it literal. No, I think there are other people in heaven besides this group of people. This is just a unique group within a greater group, the church saints. No man could learn it but them. All right, so not defiled with women, for they are virgins, followed the Lamb wherever he goes, redeemed from among men, first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. So there are others that followed after them. They're converts who sang the song of Moses and the Lamb. No guile in their mouths, for they are without fault before the throne. Very special group of people. And think about that. Just think about it. Christ, I believe, has a special affinity with his natural brothers. Don't you think? He came from the Jewish nation, and he wept for his city, who rejected him. He didn't weep for Gentile cities that I can remember, even though he called woe on that different Gentiles. No, those are Jewish cities. Chorazin and Bethsaida, he warned. But I believe that he has a special affinity, a special devotion to the nation of Israel because he came from them. They're his natural, if you will, natural brothers. So he's going to make sure he has first fruits from each tribe that will just go follow him wherever he goes and be with him. Okay, verse 6, we have the beginning of 3 angels giving the last warning. First angel has a message called the everlasting gospel. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. So there's this everlasting gospel. And this is his message, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. It's anticipative, like it's not quite, the vials are not poured out yet, but he's looking forward to or anticipating it. And so he's telling people to fear God and give glory to him and worship him that made heaven and earth and the seas and the fountains of waters. Interesting way to describe what God to worship. The one who made everything, but he doesn't mention everything, just the earth, seas, and the fountains of waters. So we got the everlasting gospel, the only time in the Bible that it's called the everlasting, or that phrase is used that way, the everlasting gospel. And here it is, fear God, give him glory, and worship him as the Creator. And I was looking at that and wondering if that fits with the gospel that we preach today, which is that Christ died, was buried, and rose again, 1 Corinthians 15. In other words, the gospel of Christ is what he did. This gospel says what you must do. Fear God, give him glory, and worship him. I don't think it's the same gospel, but maybe you can figure it out and tell me how it's the same. We got the gospel of God. That phrase appears 7 times in the Bible, which is the gospel that Paul preached. It's the gospel of the grace of God, Acts 20:24. That's very easy to understand there. And the gospel that we preach is called the power of God unto salvation, Romans 1:16. These people were warned from judgment to come. It wasn't about getting saved that I could, the way it looks to me anyway. Paul called it my gospel 3 times, the gospel of God, the gospel of the grace of God. Called the glorious gospel 2 times. And then you have the gospel of the kingdom mentioned 3 times in the Bible. And some people believe that is a different gospel than the everlasting gospel or the gospel of the grace of God. The gospel of the kingdom, which would, I believe the 144,000 will be preaching that gospel to prepare and announce the coming of the kingdom to earth. Zion moving to earthly Zion, So however you want to take that, the everlasting gospel doesn't seem to me to fit the grace of God. It's telling you what to do. And not talking about getting saved, just fear God and give him glory, for the hour of his judgment has come. And it is gospel in the sense that it's good news to the nation of Israel that after the judgment they're going to be redeemed. But here is something else to consider. Here's a passage about the gospel right at the end. And to you who are troubled, rest with us when the Lord Jesus shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels. And then it says, in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them. This is the second coming. In flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. So if you want to get saved from the vengeance that is coming, you need to obey the gospel of Jesus Christ. The everlasting gospel seems to me to be more of a general message that has always been there from all the way from the Garden of Eden all the way through. It's an intuitive message. Romans 1 describes that intuitive knowledge. And everybody knows they should fear God. But if you want to get saved from the vengeance, I believe you need to get saved through Jesus Christ and obey that gospel, which means believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and come to know God, who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power. So, The everlasting gospel, an angel is preaching that gospel. That's another thing, another clue as to why I think it's a different gospel than what we're preaching today. It's an angel preaching that one. The closest to an angel preaching the gospel that we preach is the one that showed up to Cornelius in Acts chapter 10. And even then, he didn't preach to him. He told him who to call on to come and share the gospel, and that was Peter. Angels don't share the gospel today. Men share the gospel. Men preach the gospel today. But in that future time period, an angel apparently will be flying through the midst of heaven and crying with a loud voice, preaching the everlasting gospel, to fear God, to give Him glory, and to worship Him. Okay, and then verse 8, it's the second angel, and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So this is again a preview now of the judgment of Babylon, which is about to take place. We read about that in, I think, chapter 17 and 18. So this is just a little like a preview of the whole 2 chapters coming up. She made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Political fornication, but also literal. This great city will influence every nation with their sexual immorality. And it'll make everybody in a stupor. Nations drink of the wine, the influence of that fornication, the wrath of her fornication. And Babylon, this is a city that's going to be built and will fall like the iconic building, the city of the Antichrist. And she's going to fall in one day. We'll read about that a couple chapters later. Okay, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image and receive his forehead, so there's the antithesis to the good mark that the 144,000 got in. But if you receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, which we read about in chapter 13, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. So here's a very, very solemn warning to those who will receive that mark, the mark of the beast, some kind of a engraven mark engraved on their head or on their right hand. It said, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. That will be the doom of those who take the mark and who worship the false Christ. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. They have no rest. Remember, Paul said, those who trouble you, rest with us. See, the people of God have a rest, but these people will not have any rest forever. They have no rest, day nor night, who worship the beast. Remember what the angel said? Worship God. See, it's a big, everything comes down to two sides. The devil or God in the end, you know. They have no rest, day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Don't you wish that was allegorical? Don't you wish that wouldn't be actually literally suffering and being tormented forever and ever? The smoke of their torment rising up forever and ever. No rest day or night. No reprieve. No reprieve at all. Just suffering every day. Day and night all the time. 24 hours a day. And forever. Those who receive the mark of his name. So, you say, well, that's harsh. Is God mean? I suspect that he couldn't help, but it's just the way it is, you know. If you reject him and you take the mark of the beast, you are a child of wrath, you know. And so he's long-suffering, not willing that any should perish. That's why you see him not coming yet, to give people a chance to avoid all this. And warns them, here's the third angel flying through heaven, warning people, giving that final warning. Don't do it. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. You see patience and faith mentioned here. And so there will still be saints, tribulation saints, if our interpretation is correct about the pre-tribulational rapture of the church, chapter 4, then these saints would be tribulation saints, possibly converts of the 144,000, and they are those that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Jesus mentioned patience in Luke 21:19, when he said that everybody will hate you and you will be betrayed even by your own parents and your kinfolk and your friends. And then he said this, in your patience possess ye your souls. So it's going to require not just faith for these saints to endure the tribulation, but also patience, which means in there and your souls in your patience. Patience and faith is also mentioned in chapter 13. Here is the patience, the faith of the saints. It's as if he's pointing out, here is one group of people who are just hanging in there or who are surviving unto the end, holding on to the end in the midst of the biggest pressure ever known to man. Here is the patience, that's endurance, and the faith of the saints. In fact, these people, they don't overcome the beast in the sense that they survive naturally, physically. They get killed. But they do overcome the beast in that they don't give in to him pressuring them to take the mark. And so, not that I don't think the enemy, the devil, is going to force people to try, but really, if you read your Bible carefully in chapter 13 there, it says that the second beast that rises up out of the earth, which is the false prophet, the religious figure, he deceiveth the whole world by his miracles and causeth all men to receive the mark. He causes them. He doesn't force them. He deceives them into it, and it appears that mostly everybody wants to take it. They don't mind at all. They want to devote themselves to this. Like they said, who is this beast who can make war? Like, who can make war like the beast? They're just falling all head over heels or head over right hand about this beast who had a deadly wound to his head. He appears to die and rise again to, counterfeit the resurrection of Christ, the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. So they'll just fall for this beast, this Antichrist, this very able orator, has a great mouth, he can speak like nobody else. I mean, you read the comments in, like, this YouTube of Ray Kurzweil, whatever his name is. He's talking about trying to make a body that, or a brain, a computerized, connect your brain to the computer and possibly have a man-made body to transfer your brain into that body so that when your body grows old and dies, you can maintain your life through that other man-made body. And about copying your brain, copying your mind digitally. So you read the comments and you'd expect everybody to be scared and say, we don't want any of that. That's too scary. But people are like, man, that sounds good. They're looking forward to that. And so one person actually was like worried, though, that when you copy your brain, will you be like yourself anymore? And I'm like, why are you even going there? Let's just not do that. Let's not go there and think like that. You're crazy. But people are already falling for that and looking forward to it. So I suspect this mark of the beast has something to do with that technology where you're merging technology with your body, with DNA. And if you are if you cross over the line to where you're more machine than human, then obviously you couldn't be saved, you couldn't be redeemed, and you will suffer forever and ever. And so it's not God's fault that you can't be redeemed, it's your fault. So anyhow, that's a little bit of speculation, but we'll watch it as long as we're here, right? And resist it with prayer and walking in holiness and voting. And the dragon, what do we have here? Another reference about keeping the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ, tribulation saints. 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. So that's what saves and secures these folks. Not just fearing God and worshiping Him, but having the faith of Jesus Christ. Which, of course, you would then fear God and worship Him. Okay, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write. This is what I want you to write, John. Another voice from heaven, and see that quite a bit. Voice from heaven. Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. From this time forward, it's a blessing for the saints to die. This is what it looks like he's saying. Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. You die in the Lord, that's key. If you're not in the Lord, then it would not be a blessing to die. Yea, saith the Spirit, so the Spirit of God like bears witness with that message. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. You know, I would have expected the Spirit to say that they may rest from the Antichrist persecuting them. But I guess his perspective is that they may rest from their labors and even get rewards after they die, like their works for them. In other words, somebody else continues your message or your work, and you continue to receive rewards after you die. So Hebrews 4, 9 and 10 talks about the rest. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. You notice what he said there? That they may rest from their labors. How do you rest from your labors? Or at least these people, and of course us too, I believe we can apply that to us. How do you rest from your labors? You die and go to heaven. Rest from your labors. This is resting from the good works that you were involved in, getting the gospel out or whatever God has called you to do. And so that's not necessarily talking about ceasing from your own works to get saved. I don't think that's what Hebrews chapter 4 is talking about. It's to remain faithful to God and then die and enter into rest. For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works, just like God did from his. Not bad works, good works. God didn't do bad works. Just like God did good works for 6 days and then rested and had a day of rest, that day is reserved for the people of God. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. Let us labor therefore. Let's work. Let's labor therefore to enter into that rest. It wouldn't make sense to labor to stop laboring. That wouldn't make sense. To labor to give up from your self-works. No, this is to actually work. Let us labor therefore, not to earn salvation, just to be faithful, to enter into that rest and not fall back under Judaism. This is written to Jews here, Christians. And says, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. All right, so back to chapter 14. Verse 14, and I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Best image I could find online. Had a crown on his head, a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And he's sitting on a cloud. One like unto the Son of Man, which is Jesus Christ. And so he's kind of moved away from, like, opened up another big subject here. Had the 144,000, then you had the three angels giving the last warning. And then I believe this is the final harvest. That's what you do with the sickle. You harvest with it. Another angel came out of the temple crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So, see, here's the picture that we get, is that the grapes are not quite ripe yet, so that's not harvest time. But the moment comes when they do get ripe, and then it's time to reap them right away. You wait too long. So God is assessing. By the way, when it's ripe, I think if this is referring to the evil people, then this is saying that they're not quite fully ripe yet, meaning fully sinful. They're not quite as, their cup of their iniquity isn't completely full yet. So some people say, why is God allowing all the wickedness in the world? And why does it appear that they get away with it? Well, He is keeping close track of it, and He knows when it's ripe. In other words, all the way full. And when it's full and ripe, then He'll reap the harvest and gather them and throw them into hell. Now, this is the harvest of the righteous souls, which I wasn't quite 100% sure of this first reaping, because there's two reapings mentioned here in this chapter. But if it's the righteous getting reaped, then that would be the wheat like getting gathered into the barn. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. The earth was reaped. Thrust in his sickle on the earth. Can you picture that? And the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. Some people believe that what Christ did is he reaped the church from the earth. I guess we'll see, but that's not my interpretation. So this angel came out of the temple which is in heaven. He also having a sharp sickle, and came out from the altar. A lot of angels coming forward, which had power over fire. So there's an angel in heaven right now. He has authority, he has power over fire. And cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, notice how the person who has the sickle doesn't go and do the reaping until they're told. There's a proper chain of command. Even Christ himself doesn't reap until he gets the message from the throne, no doubt. And cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle. Make sure he mentions that it's sharp. And the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. So that's saying that the grapes are not. And so when John saw this, that's what he said, but this is for us. There's the time coming when the wicked will be completely fully ripe, and they get reaped, they get gathered. They get gathered to Armageddon. And the blood will run really, really high. Joel 3:12, parallel passage to this event. Let the heathen be awakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round. Put ye in the sickle. How the sickle is used, it's the nations, the heathen nations gathered in the valley of Jehoshaphat, outside Jerusalem. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Harvest is ripe. Come, get you down. For the press is full, the wine press. The fats, like the tubs, overflow. For their wickedness is great. Their wickedness is great. Let me ask you something. Would you respect God if he didn't judge this? If he wasn't like this, judging the wicked? You see, that God, he's so mean and wicked, not wicked, but vengeful. Well, he's waiting for years and years and years. Some people accuse God of being vengeful. Other people accuse God of not being vengeful enough and not doing anything about the wicked. Which, I guess God just can't please everybody. But no, there's a time coming where he's going to judge everyone who is wicked. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. This is the harvest. For the day of the Lord is near. That's the day of wrath. The day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. And you keep reading, the sun and the moon will get dark, and he is going to judge them all and then establish his kingdom in Jerusalem. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. You know what? That's what they used to do, is they take a vine, or the grapes of the vine, and cast it into this winepress, and then they would walk on top of it to get the juice out. And God's going to do that to this vine of the earth, whoever that is. I'm not 100% sure. Is that Israel or who that is? I know Israel is called the vine. One person said that Israel was the vine. Christ is now the true vine, John 15. And so this vine would be the Antichrist in opposition to Christ, the true vine. Maybe. And So, nonetheless, there's this whole group of in Joel who are gathered together, and they are trodden. The winepress is trodden without the city. That's outside the city of Jerusalem. And blood came out of the winepress, just like grapes. These are grapes of wrath here. Blood came out of the winepress, even under the horse bridles, up to the heights of the bridles of the horses. That's like, what is that? Horse bridle, probably about 4 feet high or something. And by the space of 1,600 furlongs, I think that's 607 feet, depending who you look up. 600 to 607 feet is a furlong. So 1,600 is like 180 miles. Somewhere in there, 160 to 180 miles. Some people think 200. So right around 180 miles, 4 feet high, however wide the valley is there. Blood will be running. And that's the final end of the wicked. The Lord hath trodden underfoot. Here's Jeremiah. He's lamenting about his own people here. He's weeping for his people. The Lord hath trodden underfoot all my mighty men in the midst of me. He hath called an assembly against me to crush my young men. You know, this is allegorically speaking here. But I believe that coming crushing is literally like they literally get diced by the sword coming out of the mouth of Jesus, and blood just comes gushing out. And if you read Isaiah 66, I should have looked it up, put it in here, but it talks about Jesus walking treading on the winepress and soiling his whole garment with the blood of the wicked, his enemies. Just, it's rough. So the Lord hath trodden underfoot all my mighty men, crushed my young men. The Lord hath trodden the virgin, the daughter of Judah, as in a winepress. Because, you know, Israel was being judged for their unfaithfulness. Trodden, crushed like a winepress. And I was thinking about that Christ he's sitting on the right hand until all his enemies be made his footstool. So that time is coming. Now here is the map that somebody put together where the Armageddon is going to take place, and there are 3 different locations mentioned in the Bible where that battle will happen. Megiddo, the Kidron Valley, which is the Valley of Decision, Jehoshaphat, and then Edom. And if you believe all 3, then you're going to have to believe that that valley is like is actually about 180 miles, which is the length that 1,600 furlongs, the length of the blood being flowing that high up to the horse bridles. According to this guy, it's about 180 miles, that guy who researched it. All the way up at the top, Jerusalem is here, so all the way down to Edom, you know. That's that Armageddon. All kinds of people coming together to fight the Lamb, have that last great battle. 3 unclean spirits go out to all the kings of the world, the nations, to motivate them to bring soldiers to have that final battle against Christ and his army. And we will be riding on white horses, have an aerial view while that sword comes out of his mouth, and he treads underfoot the nations of the earth, the heathen, and judges them like grapes of wrath, and defends his people and establishes his kingdom, cleanses Jerusalem from their blood with fire, holy fire. And you'll read about these fiery dwelling places like a cloud during the day and fire by night on Mount Zion. And so that is the future that we're going to behold one day, probably not too far ahead. So Revelation 14, can you see, is pretty dramatic, but it's kind of introductory, an interval in the discussion of the seals, trumpets, and vials. And so chapter 15 is a continuation of the introduction or the interval, and then 16, the vials will be poured out, and then 17, 18, another interval about the judgment of the Babylon. All right? So that is all